This is Algebra 1 in Lesson 4. We're going to be covering 4A, 4B, and 4C in this video. All of Lesson 4 is called a review of arithmetic. It's a large section. The beginning of Saxon books are always lots of review, and this particular lesson is a lot. A lot of different things that you've probably had before. So in 4A, the textbook addresses the idea of numbers versus numerals. And I found a website, this mathisfun.com, that I thought had a really good explanation about it. And I'm going to include the link in the description. The gist of it, the summary would be a number is an idea and a numeral is how we write it. So the numeral would be like for if I drew, let me draw something here. I draw 3 stars and you see that and you see 3, okay? We just know that there's 3 of those and that's the idea. 3ness is an idea. But if I write the word 3, that is our number. I'm sorry, that's our numeral. Or I can write the number 3 like this. So the numeral is the way you write it, and the number is an idea. Now, I don't know that you really have to draw that distinction to be able to do the assignments that you're going to be doing, but they wanted to be really clear about their definitions. And again, if you'll visit this link, I think it had a pretty good explanation about it, and some other examples. 4B talks about natural or counting numbers. And 4C talks about real numbers, and I'm just going to combine those to talk about them. They talk about the decimal system and how that's the system that we use, and how it was invented a very long time ago, and it gives you lots of details about that. So this is our system, and it's made up of digits. Okay, now to explain what digits are, they are the symbols that we use to make up all of our numerals. Okay, so like you have to have a 0, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6, a 7, an 8, and a 9 to make all of our numbers. So those are the digits. So if you want to write the number 127, you just take some of these digits. You take a 1, a 2, and a 7. And the way we place them gives them their value. The 1, putting it right here, makes it worth 100. But the 2 being in this position is 2 10s, and the 7 being here is 7 1s. So digits are the symbols that we use to make up all of our numerals. Natural numbers are also known as counting numbers. Now, probably when you first started out and you were really, really small, and you may had a couple toys, maybe a couple Matchbox cars, or maybe a couple, crayons that you're counting or something, and you would start counting and you would say 1, 2, 3. Okay, right? You would start counting with 1, and then you would go to 2, and maybe eventually you'd learn 3, and you'd keep going, and then one day you were able to count up to 10, and then maybe you were able to get to 20, right? I'm going to put a ... These ellipses mean that it can keep going up. Those numbers, that set of numbers, those are called natural numbers, okay? Or they're also known as counting numbers because we use them to count. Now, you really didn't have a need for 0 when you first started counting. You didn't have a need for negative numbers. You didn't have a need for fractions. You didn't have a need for decimals. None of those sorts of things. So this is really the smallest set of numbers, and that's where you started. So those are your natural numbers. Now, real numbers, when your book talks about real numbers, they're talking about numbers that can be used, the positive ones can be used to describe physical distances. So they can be just about anything, any kind of positive number, and they give you lots of examples in your book. It would include the natural numbers, but it would also include, some fractions, maybe a mixed number. And how about a decimal? Maybe even a repeating decimal. And, improper fraction. Okay. Any of those. Okay, those are all real numbers. They can represent some sort of an amount or a distance. And so that's the real number system. We will get more in depth about that later, so I don't want to give too much right now, but that's enough for an intro to it. You probably have been exposed to positive and negative numbers. I've already actually mentioned it. These are all positives, okay? All of our counting numbers, these are all positives. How do we know they're positives? Well, there's no negative sign in front of them. So negative numbers are going to have a negative sign, the symbol like this in front of it, like -2 or -4, right? It's going to have a negative symbol in front of it. And positive numbers, they're just not going to have a symbol in front of them, okay? And if you're talking about positive and negative numbers, like a set of numbers, they may refer to it as signed numbers. They'll say, give me a signed number that represents a debt of $5, okay? I'm going to write that, a debt of $5. If you need a signed number for that, you'd probably represent it with a negative, because that would represent a debt. All right, let's see how all this fits together using a Venn diagram. This is how I think it makes the most sense. So I kind of added this in here. I like Venn diagrams, okay? And I think I may have mentioned this on another video, but let's talk about this for just a second. I'm going to make a sample, a separate Venn diagram here over to the side, okay? So if I live in Atlanta, okay, there's my bubble for all the people who live in Atlanta, and Atlanta is in Georgia, right? And Georgia is in the United States, and we can keep going. All the people in Atlanta also live in the United States. All the people in Georgia also live in the United States. But not all Georgians live in Atlanta. Okay, right? These nested circles, that's how you use them. And you may have seen a Venn diagram before that has an intersection like this. And this would be something that's true about one set. And this would be true about another set. And this would be what they have in common. You've probably used or seen a Venn diagram like that. So let's use that. Let's think about that as we look at the real number system, okay? Now, there's some sets on here that you are not going to have to learn just yet. You'll learn later. And there's actually some more sets that aren't on here that you will add in your further study of math. But for today, we're just going to focus on natural numbers down here. And we're going to, I don't want to highlight today. And we're going to focus on the real numbers. Okay, and that's pretty much all we're going to focus on until your book goes into some others. So the natural numbers, again, are just your counting numbers. That's another word for that, another term. So you'd have 1, 2, 3, and keep on going. And then if you're talking about your real numbers, it would include all of these other numbers. You'll find out later that rational numbers are going to be numbers that you can write as a fraction. Integers are all of these numbers inside, but also includes your negative values. Okay, and your whole numbers just add 0 into the set. We'll learn about that all later, but right now you don't even really have to know that. Okay, you just need to know that all natural numbers are real. All natural numbers are real, but not all real numbers are natural numbers. That's the summary of what you need to know for today's lesson.